This week I'm driving the Maserati Ghibli Hybrid, which isn't actually a hybrid, it's just a mild hybrid. It is Maserati's attempt to replace the diesel version of the Ghibli with an equally efficient, or they say more efficient, mild hybrid 4-cylinder gas engine. The power plant under the long and very sculpted bonnet is related to the 2-liter that Alfa Romeo uses. But in this application, with the mild hybrid, it makes 330 horsepower and 450 newton meters of torque. And Maserati says that it should sprint to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.9 seconds and top out at 255 kilometers per hour. In other words, this is kind of the entry-level Ghibli, even though my tester costs nearly 100,000 euros. This is the first ever Maserati that I've driven, and the first Ghibli, obviously. And while this powertrain is really good, I can't help but wonder what this vehicle feels like with a 6-cylinder. There is a similarly powered V6 in the range, but this is considerably more efficient than that. For instance, cruising up to this slightly twisty bit of road that we're approaching now on the highway and doing like 120, 130 kilometers per hour, the car was averaging under 8 liters per 100 kilometers. So it's fair to assume that you could get it around 10, maybe 11 liters per 100 kilometers if you drive it sensibly in mixed in and out of town conditions. My tester doesn't have all-wheel drive, but it does have a limited slip differential. And the thing is, the second you climb aboard this car, you instantly feel very special. I mean, this has the extended leather option, which is very nice. There's leather practically, well, everywhere. Even on the dash here. And it all looks very special. You are also greeted by this, I have to say, a bit big steering wheel. I would have liked something smaller and sportier, but at least it's nicely designed. And the pedals are especially nice. They are cold to the touch, so they are metallic, obviously. And when you use them and the engine is under load, it parps and bangs behind you really rather nicely. The gearbox is an 8-speed automatic from ZF, but I have to say that I like Maserati's tuning of the gearbox, because if you put it in sport mode, it not only makes the exhaust rather burbly and it pops when you shift, but it's also quite responsive, which is more than I can say for the engine, especially since you expect engines that have a mild hybrid system to have very, very quick response to your throttle input. Whereas this, the Ghibli 2-liter, okay, we're in 3rd gear, flooring it. Nothing, 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 and now it picks up. It's actually a bit annoying, and we're already in sport mode, and it does this in all of the gears. I'm not sure why. When it does pick up and it does go, it does go. But I would have liked it to be a bit more responsive, I think. It's still very much fun, but you kind of have to anticipate when you need to stab on the throttle a bit earlier than you would in a very, very responsive car. You just have to wait for the turbo to spool up a bit too much, I think. And because this car has a gas particulate filter that is now mandatory in order to sell new cars in Europe, even gasoline cars, not only for diesels, the engine note slash exhaust note that you get inside the car is really rather muted. It's a pleasant noise, but I would have liked more of it, to be honest. Ever since I got this car, I have not taken it out of sport mode. I haven't put the suspension in sport, but the transmission is in manual and the powertrain is in sport. And this also opens up valves in the exhaust, making the car louder. Okay, so let's test the acceleration. Left on the brake, bury the right in the gas and let it go. It's good. It won't rip your face off. But you cannot deny that it's a lot of fun. Would this car be better with a 6-cylinder, especially for the keen driver who also appreciates a nice, glorious soundtrack with their sporty sedan? Yes. Is this engine bad? Does it ruin the car? No, and frankly, I don't know. This is the first Ghibli I've ever driven, so what do I know? I do enjoy driving it. Checking this car's spec sheet, I honestly thought it was closer in size to a BMW 3 Series, but it's ever so slightly smaller than the latest 5 Series. But even though it's smaller than a 5 Series, it's almost 200 kilos heavier. Is it affected by that in the corners? Well, honestly, it feels about as sharp as the BMW. And the body is very nicely controlled. And I have to admit that the suspension without the stiff setting enabled is better than the 5 Series. And I'm mentioning it because it's the most recent similar car to this that I've driven, and it's fresh in my memory. And even though the latest BMW 5 Series is amazing when it comes to comfort, I think this is about as good as that. Sometimes it feels even floatier than the BMW, to be honest. In a good way, I mean. It's very nice that the rear sunblind thing goes down when you put the car in reverse. It goes down electrically. So even though it's a bit on the heavy side, you don't really feel it. It feels nimble enough from behind the wheel, and it does give you confidence to throw it into bends. And I really like the fact that it has a limited slip differential at the back. It claws its way out of bends, no problem. You don't really feel it's there until you're really on it. I'm going to tackle the same set of bends again, now with the suspension in its stiff setting. The brakes really feel strong. I think it's a bit too stiff with the suspension in its stiffer setting. I'll just leave it in the floaty setting, which is perfectly fine because this road is not smooth. As you can see, I'm bouncing all over the place, or I was bouncing with it in sport. But even without it, It's very sure-footed. This car wouldn't need all-wheel drive, at least in these dry conditions that we have here today. The only thing that bugs me, and it's not even the lack of a rotty engine noise, but the lag that I mentioned before when you stab it. I'm stabbing it, nothing, and then it picks up. It's kind of annoying, and I'm not sure why it's there. To be honest, it's the only fly in an otherwise really very good Italian ointment. Italians are really good at automotive ointment, so this does not come as a surprise. I can see myself having a lot of fun with this car. It's a great piece of kit. But what the Ghibli needs, aside from doing the sporty stuff right, which it does, in my opinion at least, it also needs to be a good everyday, day-to-day, daily vehicle. Because that's where its much more popular German rivals win out. So how does the Ghibli fare? Well, the driving position is wonderful. I would have liked the steering wheel to come a little bit closer to me, maybe. But I do really like the driver's seat. It's very comfortable. It has great lateral support. One slight problem is that rear passengers aren't so pampered. And I again have to resort to the same BMW 5 Series comparison. In a new 5 Series, you feel like you're in a limousine compared to the Ghibli. I don't really fit behind myself particularly comfortably. I could definitely travel in this car in the rear on longer journeys, but I would need frequent stretching brakes and stops. It's not bad though. The seats are also comfortable in the back as well, and coupled with this cushy suspension, even on these very big rims, which are really rather pretty, but we'll get to them in the exterior part of this review, which was totally not filmed on a different day and separately, and I was totally not wearing a different t-shirt. And I think that two not very tall passengers, such as myself, I'm 183 centimeters tall, would find a longer journey in this car bearable, especially when they're cocooned in so much luxury. But again, I'm going to let differently dressed me, not on a different day, tell you about the interior as well. But my overall driving impressions for this vehicle is that it's very comfortable when you want it to be. When you put the suspension in its sportier setting, it definitely really firms things up. And it's only really suitable for the smoothest of roads. This car is built for Italians, obviously, or with Italians in mind. And the roads in Italy can vary from very good to appalling in a matter of meters. The vehicle also comes packed with tech. First, I have to say that it has very nice physical controls for the climate control. The infotainment is very good. I did not experience older versions of Maserati's infotainment, but this one is Android-based apparently, and you can tell. And if you don't like it, you can wirelessly connect your phone, whether it be an Android or an Apple product. You also get a 360-degree surround view camera, front and rear parking sensors, which are a bit on the paranoid side, it has to be said. This car is also level 2 autonomous driving capable, so it can maintain a safe distance to the car in front, steer when the road gets twisty, but not too twisty. You obviously do have to keep touching the wheel, but it's in line with what other vehicles provide these days. And I also like the old school approach to setting the car in the sport mode. So modern cars have a button that you can toggle through modes with, whereas this has a button to stiffen the suspension, a button to put the powertrain in sport, a button to put the vehicle in its eco mode, because this hybrid has an eco mode now. And there's more old school goodness in this car. I absolutely love the analog dials. They are superb. Looking at these dials makes me miss analog dials more in cars these days, even though flashy screens will steal the show sometimes in some modern interiors, like some new Mercedes products, for instance. This car also has the typical Maserati analog clock, and there are quite a few subtle Maserati logos around the cabin. But I'll tell you more about those in the dedicated interior and exterior bits. Regarding the exterior, it's the same familiar Ghibli shape that we've known for some 7 years now. It was facelifted in 2017, and it received another mild update in 2020, I think. In late 2020 it was announced. The Ghibli Hybrid. The big news about the latest redesign is that they added tail lights that look very similar to those of the 3200 GT, a 1990s coupe. In fact, you can't see them, so I'll turn the lights on for you real quick. Still can't see them. But this piece lights up. The exhausts are thankfully real. The outer ones only open when you put the car in sport mode. I like this little detail here. It's very Maserati. It rides on 20-inch wheels that are staggered. So you have 245s on the front and 285s on the rear. You can tell the electrified Ghibli apart from other Ghibli models by some of the blue accenting. Like here, you have this blue detail. The brake calipers are also blue, as you can see. And there are also these blue details here yet again. The car gets matrix LED headlights. The grille is another recently redesigned part, and Maserati redesigned it when they changed the trident, because now for this latest version, because it is level 2 autonomous driving capable, this is where some of the sensors live, and so they can't have an actual badge here. And these vertical elements, they're also new. So yeah, that's the Ghibli Hybrid exterior. Let's head inside. On the interior, you feel really very special in this car. This particular car that I'm driving today, my tester, has the extended leather pack. So it gets leather up on the dash here as well. It's very nice. I really like these analog gauges. I don't like these very cheap looking and feeling switches that are borrowed from lesser Fiat Chrysler products, as are the window controls, although they do get a nice chrome detail here, which on their original vehicles they are not present there. The steering wheel is a nice shape, although it's a bit too big. I like that it has actual physical controls for the climate. I also like this stacked design. So this top upper knob that you rotate is the volume, and then you have tuning underneath. This is where you put it in its stiff suspension setting. You have sport mode here, the eco mode here. This is how you turn off the automatic stop and start, and the ESP off button. The charging tray for your mobile phone is located behind this lid, and it even extends outward. It's not as fiddly as I'm making it look, because I'm doing this with my left hand. So you have your phone, you put it in here, you press this inside and then hide it. It's very nice. I love this little retro looking clock here. The seats are very comfortable and they look very good too. There's little to criticize about the seats. They of course have embossed Maserati logos here. Space in the back is not great, to be honest. I can hardly fit behind myself. My knees touch the seat in front of me. But if I sit in a kind of slouched position with my legs really far apart, I probably can make it work. To sum up the Maserati Ghibli, I think that it's worth understanding who this car is designed for. I don't think it's designed for the medium-sized executive sedan buyer who wants the utmost practicality out of their luxury sedan purchase, because it is not the most practical. Yeah, it has a decent-sized trunk. It's 500 liters and it's a usable shape and size. Space in the back is okay for adults who are under 1.8 meters tall. But I think this car addresses a slightly different buyer to the person who might be interested in a BMW 5 Series or a Mercedes E-Class. Because this car really makes you feel special, even though it is not perfect. It makes you feel special, and you even pay for the privilege of saying, I own a Maserati. It's a Ghibli. That means something, even though the Maserati brand isn't as powerful as it once was. And honestly, I think this is a very pretty car. Even though it's 7 years old, it's still very, very good looking. I think it has aged quite well. And driving a Ghibli, you make other people happy, because it's a nice thing to look at and to listen to, because that exhaust note is very, very good for a 4-cylinder. So I totally think that you should at least consider taking a Ghibli for a test drive before you go out and buy one of the predictable choices. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and until the next video, take care.